Hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and welcome back to our series, which we have entitled Refuting Dan Gibson. We have been basically responding to a number of legitimate claims that were raised against the Dan Gibson theory, and we always welcome, of course, claims as such. And people, of course, are entitled to try to refute any claim by anybody, provided that they provide some reasonable way to explain their side of it. And we will respond in accordance to the data that is available to show why, for instance, Dan mentioned something about, in this case, Petra, or the origin of Islam, or the Qibla, and so on and so forth. So we have another argument that was raised against Dan, and the argument says, why did Persians not mention Petra? So Dan, welcome back, of course. This is really a legitimate question to ask. What do you think is the answer to that argument?
Well, the argument is based on the fact that the Persians attacked Jerusalem and took it over right around 612, maybe after AD.
Or 14, I think, yeah.
Okay, and I think, 14, you're right. And they occupied the city for about 14 years. This is important in the Quran because it happens during the very beginning years of Islam. And so, the Quran actually refers to that. We may talk about that in a minute. But so when the Persians attacked, they had their own troops, but they also had 20,000 Jewish troops with them, and there are even some Arab tribes that had joined them. They attacked the Byzantines and made it all the way over to Jerusalem. I mean, this was a huge thing. Byzantine Empire is pretty well cut in half into two, and so they arrived there, and so the Jews, there's 20,000 Jewish troops. They take control of the city of Jerusalem, and they, of course, start making plans that they're going to build the temple, a third temple that was going to be there. So, they were all excited because they now have control of Jerusalem, even though it's under the Persian Empire. The Jews have taken control of the city. They were there for about 14 years, and then a revolt happened, and there was a big fight to the Byzantines fighting. Again, we won't go into all the details. Thousands of Christian troops died as well. And so 14 years later, when there was peace that was made, let me go back. When they took over the city, 20,000 Jewish troops, some 20,000 Christians died in that battle. Now, 14 years later, the peace was made between the Persians and the Byzantines. The city was turned back to Byzantine control. So it's a little blip in history. 14 years, and because of all the things that were going on. This was happening way up in Jerusalem, far away from all the other events that supposedly were taking place in Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Right. And so, why would it be important? However, if the city of Petra was actually the holy city of Islam, as I am proposing and backing up with data and Qiblas and all the other things, then it would have been more important. So people are arguing, why isn't Petra actually mentioned? Well, the truth is, none of the battles took place in Petra. None of the fighting was there. It was still in the Byzantine Empire, but under the client tribes that we mentioned in the last video. And so it wasn't part of what was taking part in the Byzantine Empire at that time. So it for most of us, it's a little piece of history that might be interesting. It might not be interesting. So why should it be there? Well, what is interesting that in the 30th surah of the Quran, it predicts the imminent defeat of the Persians by the Byzantines.
That's right.
And there's a verse there in Surah 30, 1-6, and it tells us the Romans have been defeated in the nearby land, not thousands of kilometers away. After their defeat, they will be victorious. In a few years, Allah's is the command before and after that. And on that day, the believers will rejoice with the help of Allah. He helps whom He pleases, and He is the mighty and the merciful. So this battle of the Romans being defeated and then coming back is actually referred to in the Quran. And so it was important to the people in the Quran. My question is not just why wasn't it mentioned? I think it wasn't mentioned because it wasn't a very important piece of history. It was just a very short thing. But my question is, why are the Romans and this battle, why is it mentioned in the Quran and mentioned as a nearby land if it wasn't nearby? So that's my response to that argument.
That is right. And it makes you wonder if it was mentioned as a form of celebrating that it seemed like the occupiers have been defeated, to some extent. But again, this is just a mere speculation. But all that to say, you're right. I always make this argument. If the Quran took the time to talk about something, then it must have been important to the author of that particular chapter to make reference to it. Here's an example. Our Muslim friends deny the crucifixion. Then why did the Quran bother to talk about the crucifixion if it never happened in the first place? Unless it was such an important historical, event that the Quran wanted just to have a dip in terms of refuting it, but it didn't do a good job in doing so anyway.
Right. Very good.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Dan. So what are we going to talk about next time?
Well, we're going to talk about something in the Quran that talks about writing down loans and debts.
All right. So we're going to talk about accounting, taxes, and all sort of things, I guess. So with that in mind, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We encourage you, of course, as always, to share your thoughts, your comments, or even your questions. You can, of course, share them directly with Dan if you like. In fact, Dan, how can they reach out to you? Do you have any presence on social media or online in general?
No, outside of my website. The best way is to visit my website, nabatia.net, and go to one of the pages. There are over 1,000 pages of information there. But if you have a specific topic, you can put it in a search bar and search. You can find that topic where we discuss it and make a comment. I read all the comments on my website and I respond to those that are appropriate to respond to. So that's the best way, is to find me on my website.
Wonderful. You've heard it from the man. So if you couldn't find that page for whatever reason, then reach out to Dan through us, and we'll make sure he gets your comments directly, because we care for your opinions and your comments and want to make sure that we respond to them in a timely fashion. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to our next episode to continue with this series of refutations and responses to those claims. Until then, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, CIRA International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.